Welcome to the Noble Ape podcast, Ape Reality. I'm Tom Barbalet, and yes, you may have actually forgotten that this podcast exists. I almost had, quite honestly. Well, no, not quite. Just every time I started to record an Ape Reality podcast, something happened. I had a video podcast actually queued that I recorded last Sunday, but I was just looking a little under the weather, and I thought, better not scare the children with that one. Anyway, so what have I been doing that's Noble Ape related? Well, bits and pieces. I got a book chapter out, a Springer book chapter, the end of September, and it's kind of embarrassing because it's getting towards the end of October and I haven't recorded an Ape Reality since then. However, really I was just in a state of recovery. We had a family wedding which was literally the day after the Springer book chapter came out. And then, I've just been doing a lot of podcast-related stuff and not really looked at any Noble Ape-related source code since the book chapter, although I do have some things on the to-do list associated with Noble Ape that I want to work on in the near future. The first one is that I picked up an iPhone 4, which was a birthday present. So I've recently celebrated birthday and got an iPhone 4, and I started thinking about all the pinch and twist kind of techniques of having 2 points that you can use, and the kind of interfaces that would generate for Noble Ape-related interaction. So I don't know if that's going to be a near-future thing. What I tend to do over the American Thanksgiving period is I tend to take a couple of days off, primarily because while I'm working, my wife goes away, but I like to take the kind of Thanksgiving days off if I can. So I may take the days off over Thanksgiving and focus more heavily on that. In fact, I'll probably pick it up a lot sooner than that. It's just something that that time frame seems to lend itself very well to a good degree of programming. The other thing is the 1993 book project, and that is something which is really coming to an end in terms of just so many iterative cycles of editing. I think I've maybe had 6 or 7 iterative cycles of editing, which is just the nature of self-publishing, but it's gotten to a state of stability or near stability in terms of the fact that it's probably ready to be published in a new year kind of time frame, and obviously there'll be a site and various other support things associated with that, but I'm interested in seeing if some of the techniques I'm using with podcasting currently will actually work with regards to a physical book, and this will be something that will be sold on Amazon, and probably I'll do all the publicity myself, which I'm actually really looking forward to, because one of my main frustrations with all these book chapters and all this other nonsense that I've done over the recent years is that the publicity is always done really poorly by the publishers, so I'll be able to address some of that and actually create, a semi-media blitz, I guess, or at least some kind of PR campaign associated with this book, and it'll become a thing in and of itself, and then I'll actually have an opportunity to decompress. One of the things that I'm doing in parallel with doing this book is also making a role-playing game based on the book, and it's just a means of, I guess, creating an environment which is sort of like artificial life, but not really. It's going to be an interesting process. I'm starting to wonder who actually reads anymore, and I think of the groups that do read, the folks that play role-playing games, that whole science fiction fantasy element, they still tend to be readers. So watch this space. It's going to be an interesting project. I've written about maybe 10 pages, 10 what I guess I'd call A4 pages, but are actually US letter pages of rules, and I'm just working through all of that kind of stuff. It's stuff that I did in my childhood, well, my late teens fundamentally. What else have I been doing? Well, I have a new podcast out called Stone Ape, which primarily features me and a fellow by the name of Heronstone talking. I think I talked a little bit about this in the last Ape Reality, but it was so long ago I can't actually remember. Anyway, the podcast has been formally launched. It has been recognised enough that it is now on Apple iTunes recommended. But for more information and actually to subscribe to the podcast, go to nobleape.com/stone, and all the details, including a Facebook group, are available there. But it's an interesting project. I think if you have always wondered what I do other than artificial life, there's not a lot of discussion associated with artificial life in Stone Ape. It's more a general kind of philosophy, talking, some political stuff, wild stories, and just the kind of stuff that you probably wouldn't normally hear in a Biota podcast or an Ape Reality or even a Model Rail radio. So it's an interesting project, and one that I think I will certainly continue on into the near future, mainly because I also want to use it as an opportunity to talk with a number of folks that I know who normally wouldn't fit into an artificial life, Model Rail radio kind of framework. So it's going to be an interesting project going forward. I think we're up to about episode 15. I'm recording episode 17 tonight, and I have a huge backlog of audio associated with Model Rail radio and Stone Ape. So the audio editing is really actually a large hobby in and of itself currently, although I'm doing pretty well in terms of actually getting the stuff out there. There's just a huge volume of stuff to actually get out there, which is part of the problem. So anyway, not a lot of Noble Ape related news. My hope is that I will have fresh water included in the simulation, plus perhaps a slightly different interface ideally suited for the iPhone in a kind of end-of-year time frame. But, so many other projects going on currently. Who knows what direction it'll take. I haven't heard anything from Bob Mottram in recent weeks, although the Noble Ape Twitter server interface is pumping out a lot of really interesting Noble Ape related stuff. So if you're on Twitter, track the hashtag #NobleApe, all one word, and you will see what the simulated Noble Apes are doing on Bob Mottram's Twitter server. So, an interesting interface for the simulation. But this is just a short, I'm not really dead, I really am still alive, this is what I'm doing currently, kind of update for Ape Reality. And like I've been saying, if folks have any questions, any comments, anything that I could talk to in this podcast, it makes producing these podcasts a lot easier. But really, I could probably start at the beginning again and start looking at aspects of Noble Ape that haven't accurately been covered in Ape Reality to date, and just work from there. So anyway, thank you very much for tuning into this podcast. Thank you very much for putting up with the lack of podcasts recently. And yes, hopefully there'll be a new podcast for you to listen to soon. So yes, look forward to you tuning into the next podcast. Thank you very much. Tom Barber, Las Vegas, Nevada, signing out.